Hello everyone. It is so good to be back. And thank you for joining me. Grab your knitting, grab your drink, even a really big glass of wine, coffee, tea, wherever you're at, glass of water, and let's talk about some knitting. Hello everyone, and welcome to the For Fun of Knit podcast. This is a little corner of YouTube where I share a little bit of my knitting, my adventures and misadventures. My name is Linda, so if this is your first time checking in on this podcast, thank you so much for giving it a shot. Welcome to all the new viewers that have come about in the last month or so. And super welcome back to all of you faithful folks who have been following along to all of my chatter and the shenanigans between Vancouver and Spain and all that fun stuff. And I have a ton to share with you today. A lot of works, a lot of FOs, some whips, and I'm going to save the chatter to the end. For those of you that just want to get to the knitting, we're going to get right to it. For those of you that want to stick around for the chatter, awesome, because like I said, I got lots to catch you up on. So without further ado, sip of wine first. I miss $10 bottles of wine in Spain. My liver probably doesn't, but I do. Anyway, I have so much to share. You cannot see all the stuff in front of me, but I have probably about 20 skeins of yarn. I have lots of project bags. I have books, and I have some tools and some things to share that I have found recently that are just working really well for me. So I thought I would share that. And I am now, I'm sorry if you see the light shining in my glasses. I can see it over there. But I'm now full on into glasses to make everything bigger. The camera is about, I don't know, 2 feet away from me. I can't see 2 feet away from me. Everything's blurry. So I have to keep the glasses on today. And I think I need to go to the eye doctor and see if I actually need prescription glasses. But I digress. So lots of knitting. Oh my goodness. I think I podcasted when I was in Spain. And so that was probably not I did not podcast February at all. I did 2 in January, I think. And oh my gosh, it's spring. It is March 20th. It is spring. Welcome spring. It's so exciting. I actually pulled out my gardening books today. So with that in mind, a lot of my knitting theme in the last little bit has been with the better weather in mind. That said, while I was in the sun in Spain, I ended up knitting a few wintry things. So let's start with finished objects. And the first one would be, ta-da, what I am wearing. I'm going to stand up. I don't know if you're going to recognize this pattern the way I have made it, but let's take a look. This is the pattern. Excuse all the wrinkly linen shirt underneath. 3/4 length sleeves. Super cropped, which is nice. So it goes over a dress or it goes over jeans, which is what I have it on with a long shirt. And then look at the pattern detail on the top. Do you recognize it? For those of you that have watched my podcast, you know what this is. For those of you that have knit this sweater, you'll know what it is. But those of you who are new, you might not recognize it. So this was a complete adventure in knitting. because, as you know, I brought a whole bunch of knitting with me. And I was half successful with what I brought and half not successful with what I brought. But part of my challenge in actually finishing things is that I get distracted by an idea. This sweater was a complete surprise, impromptu. We were walking down the street. There was a little teeny weeny tienda, you know, that was like a little corner store that happened to have wool. And I popped in and I liked the color and I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll get 4 skeins of it and just see how it goes and see what I can make of it. This is the Ranunculus. Yes, this is a winter weight Ranunculus. The funny thing about traveling though is if you don't bring your entire stock of needles, you have to sort of make do with what you've got. So that is kind of what happened with this sweater. So let me tell you a little bit about it. This is knit with Katia Peru yarn. Don't ask me the color number. It's just a number. I think it was 128. And this is like 50% or 45% acrylic, 35% wool, and the rest was alpaca. So 20% alpaca or whatever that turned out to be. I can't remember. And it is a bulky weight, Aran 2 bulky weight yarn, if I'm not mistaken. And I just liked the color and I thought, what could I possibly knit with 4 skeins? I looked at the yardage. I don't have the tags anymore. I'm sorry. And it was, I had a total of 500, no, I had a total, yeah, just under 600 yards of yarn. And I thought, you know what? I could probably make a ranunculus out of that. So I started fishing through my needles. The pattern calls for 6.5 millimeter, 6 to 6.5 millimeter. And let me just go to my handy guide and tell you what that is in US needles. So between 10 and 10.5 US size needles. I did not have those. What I had with me was 4 millimeter needles or 6 US needles. That's a big difference. 1, the yarn was really chunky, and 2, I was like 2 to 3 sizes of needles too small. That's all I had. And I thought, oh my gosh, do I even dare try this? But you know, the Ranunculus has a whole variety of sizes, so I thought I will just go up, you know, a few sizes. I don't swatch. I take the Stephen West approach. I watch to swatch. No, he goes, don't swatch, just watch. So I just started knitting. What I will say is this turned out so fabulous, so fluky fabulous, at least in my mind. I wanted the wider neckline, which they say cast on 60 stitches, and that's for everybody, I think. Cast on 60 stitches. I cast on 10 more because I was thinking, oh my goodness, I've got really small needles. I'll add 10 stitches. Then, as I knit the entire pattern, what I tried to do was maintain that 10 to 15 stitches. Every time there was an increase row, I made sure there was 10 or 15 stitches more than what the pattern called for in my size. And it took me a couple of false starts to get it, but I got it, and that worked out really well. I cast on, however, I wanted a stretchy bind off. I wasn't sure if this wool being, you know, partly acrylic was actually going to have any give. So I used Patty Lyon's Icelandic cast on. I don't know if you've heard of an Icelandic bind off. It is a very nice finish for a stretchy bind off. And I have used it in my cuffs. I don't know if you can see it. I've used it in my cuffs and on the hem. But I wanted to have a sort of a stretchier cast on that looked a little more like a tubular cast on, and I'm hoping you can see this, that what a nice, I don't know if you can see that well, but it makes a super beautiful cast on at the top without looking just like your regular cast on. It's a little fancier. It's got more of a roll to it, which is kind of nice. And it's stretchy, which is really good. So I used Patty Lyon's Icelandic cast on to cast on. I cast on 10 more stitches. Keep in mind my needle size is 3 times too small. three needles too small. And then I kept making sure that for every increased row, I kept 10 to 15 stitches more than I needed. And then because it's top down, which is so great about this pattern, you can keep trying it on, which I did. I kept trying it on. And then I split for the sleeves. I knit a little bit. Actually, no, I knit the entire thing, and then the ribbing and the cuffs are in a twisted rib. And I wasn't sure if, actually I knew for a fact I wasn't going to have enough for sleeves. So I went back to the store and bought 2 more balls so I could finish the sleeves, and each ball only gave me 3/4 length sleeve, hence the short sleeves or the 3/4 length sleeves. But let me tell you, I have been wearing this like 5 or 6 times already. It is so comfortable. It is dirt cheap yarn. So, you know, if you're looking for a more cost-effective sweater to knit, this I think ended up being $8 a ball. So what's $48? I shouldn't say that. It's not that cheap. It was still $50. But for a hand knit sweater, that's pretty reasonable when you think that it is a winter weight. This thing is so warm, yet it's still breathable strangely, even though it's half acrylic, which shocks the hell out of me. Oops, sorry, I think I just swore. Oh well, I won't edit that out. Shocks the heck out of me. The other thing is, because there's like 20% alpaca, this wool, which is Katia Peru, it's not the finest alpaca. It's still got some of the alpaca hairs in it. So I need to be wearing a linen shirt underneath it in order for it not to sort of poke at me every now and then. So if you're, you know, sensitive or not going to wear a shirt under it, I wouldn't recommend this yarn. But if you're wearing a shirt underneath it, it is awesome. And this is a workhorse sweater. I've worn it a ton. It's not pilling. And I love the pattern detail. The smaller needles and the heavier yarn created a much denser, tighter weave, obviously. And so I'm going to reach underneath my sweater. And so you can see I still have, here I come again, I still have the Ranunculus pattern, you know, but it is just not as loose as any of the other yarns that you might try. So that is finished object number 1. There you go. You may have noticed, let me just have another sip of wine. Please take a sip of your drink or coffee. If you followed me along to Spain, you knew I brought a whole bunch of yarn with me, and I made my very first Habitation throw. Look at this beauty. Look at the colors of this. Oh my God, I'm just in love with it. And it is huge. It is huge. This is a pattern by Helen Stewart. I'm not going to show pictures because you all know it. Helen Stewart, Curious Handmade. It's called the Habitation throw. And you just start at one corner and start increasing, and then do little eyelet rows, and then you switch yarns, do some rows, do an eyelet row, switch yarns, and you just keep, and it was supposed to be an advent. This was released as an advent pattern, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe. And so I was using my Sweet Skein of Mine minis as well as my Loco minis, all in the pinks, which half of them have, you can't really see it, but half of them have stellina in it and half of them don't. So I alternated, but this thing turned out, look at it, it's just beautiful. I have to show you it. What I laugh about, look at this thing. It is just a beauty. It is a beauty. What I laugh about is that this lovely puppy is not even. How can someone have a misadventure and muck up a pattern that is so intuitive, so well written? Look at this. This thing is huge. You can even wear it as a scarf. You can wear it as a shawl. Like, it is just lovely. But I don't know what I did. I do not know what I did. But one side was one size. The other side was bigger. So I wasn't about to undo it all. All I can figure out is that in my sort of hazy brain through that period, I was perfect on the increasing side. As soon as I got to the halfway mark and had to start doing the decreases, I think I missed a lot of them. That's all I can say, because my second half was a lot bigger than my first half. You would not know that now because it is a perfect square, because that is the magic of blocking. And what I will say is it's not a perfect square. It's actually 48 inches by 54 inches. So it's not quite a perfect square, but it is a perfect rectangle thanks to the magic of blocking. So you don't know nobody would know any differently, that it wasn't supposed to be that way. And that is the magic of blocking and the beauty of wool, and how you can, fix a few flaws here and there just by wetting it and shaping it the way you want it to shape. But this is my Habitation throw. Oh, I love this. Now this is going to be part of my Valentine's Day decor. I mean, not really. Anytime I feel like having pink, I'm going to take it out, but it's pretty pink. So it doesn't really match anything in my house. Not that I need to be matchy-matchy. However, look at this thing. It's just gorgeous. I just love it. And it's just so squishy. Look at this. Oh, it's just, I would highly, highly, highly recommend this pattern. So had a blast making that. So that is finished object number 2. Oops, and it just fell on the floor. Oh dear. Finished object number 3 and 4 I'm going to do together because, ta-da, they are scrappy socks. Now, these scrappy socks, if you can see, oh, I don't have the other one. Do I have the actual other sock? What did I do with the actual twin to this puppy? Okay, I actually should have put this one on the sock blocker, so I will put this one on the sock blocker, and you can see what I'm doing. And these are truly, truly scrappy socks, and I think I might have put them on Instagram, I can't remember. But I entered these socks into the 2 different knit-alongs being held by Noelle and Kelly of Knits and Pieces. They have a year-long knit-along, which is their sock-along. So these both got entered. I also entered them in the Smash That Stash knit-along that they're having, and I think it only goes to the end of March. So wish I could have knit more, but these are truly scrappy, and you can see how scrappy, because look at the toe on this one. It's actually the last remnants of the Habitation throw. So I did the Habitation throw. Keep in mind, I'm traveling. I don't want to take any of the yarn bits and pieces back with me. So I knit scrappy socks with as much of the yarn as I could. And my 2 socks are pretty matching. Not 100%, because what I did is I balled up all the remaining yarn from my Habitation throw, and I would knit 6 rows on one sock, then go to the next sock and knit at least 6 rows if I could. Sometimes I only made 4, sometimes I made 7. And then I would start the next yarn on the next sock, knit 6 rows if I could, and then whatever was left over, I would knit on this sock. And I kept going until I had no more yarn left. No more yarn left, except for these little odds and ends. So these were the little minis that were at the end of the throw. So I had extra yarn left over. And so this half of the sock, this whole sock, is the leftover from my Cozy Knitters Advent socks 2021. I knit those in January. Well, I had yarn left over, and I thought, you know what? I don't want to take just partial balls of yarn back with me. So what I did is I doubled up. I still had 50 grams at least of the yarn left. So I doubled up and I made my very first DK pair of socks. And this DK pattern is from Kay, the Crazy Sock Lady. And it's just a vanilla DK. And I fell in love again with a heel flap and gusset heel. Part of my intentions, my 9 intentions for the year, was to just enjoy every stitch. And I did. I even enjoyed picking up the stitches on the sides. And so these were cuffed down, and they were so much fun. And because it was DK weight yarn, held double, what I did is I matched up the yarn as much as I could. So I was doing the same stripe with both yarns. Worked out really well on that sock. Worked out really well on that sock until about here, and then I ran out and I had a little bit of white left, and then the rest of my other minis, and all held double, so it's DK, and they fit like a dream. They fit like a dream. These socks are going to have so many memories attached to them. So I really, really enjoyed that. Yeah, and don't be afraid. Hey, don't be afraid to just, whatever scraps you have, just start knitting. And that's kind of a fun way to do it. Knit a little bit on one sock, knit a little bit on another sock. And then they don't have to be perfectly matched, because these ones just sort of blend. These ones just sort of blend. And I had some white that I brought with me for toes and cuffs, and that was the last of that too, because don't forget I knit 2 pairs of socks in January as well. For the month of March, I have not knit a sock. I don't know why that is. I don't know why that. I have not lost my sock mojo. That is not the case at all. I am so excited to start another pair of socks. My goal, self-imposed goal, was to knit 2 pairs of socks per month. And so I'm gonna have to make it up somewhere, because March I do not see myself making socks at all, and you'll understand why in a minute. But that was finished object 3 and 4. Oh my. The pièce de la résistance is finished object number 5. So this is my Speckle and Pop Shawl, and that is a Stephen West pattern. And look at this beauty. Look at this beauty. I'm going to unwrap her. I'm going to unwrap her and show her to you a little closer. And this is, believe it or not, a pattern my sister and I started together May of last year. So it's almost a year ago. We're talking a long time whip. I am trying to finish what I started. So part of last year and this year's, 9 intentions for the year was to really try and finish the projects that have just been kind of or make a decision about them at least. If you're going to frog them, but don't just have them sitting in a closet. Either repurpose the wool, gift the item, whatever. But this one is one I knew that I wanted, because I don't have a gray shawl. I don't have anything to go with black. So this, well, everything goes with black, but you know what I mean. I didn't have a more neutral type of a shawl. Everything seems to be quite colorful. Well, true to Stephen West form, this is still colorful, but it's a little tamer. It's a little tamer than October's shawlography. Oh my goodness, this is so much more mainstream. I don't know how to describe it, but let me just walk you through it. So look at this edging, and there's something I got to say about the edging. But how it starts, let me just make sure. Oh, sorry. So this is one end, and you'll notice it's got beautiful detail in construction. It's loopy, then pointy, and another point. And then the shawl actually starts, and you knit it this way. But you start with a light base, and then you blend in a medium base, and then you blend in a darker base. So you can see how the gradient kind of goes. That is lovely. So this light gray is West Wool's Bicycle, which is just wool and a little bit of tencel, I do believe. It's called Dutch Sky. This medium gray was Ancient Arts Little Nettle Soft, which is superwash merino and nettle instead of nylon. So I love these two because they do not have nylon in them. I don't think tencel's nylon. I think tencel's wood. And then the last skein is a mystery skein. It was never used. I'd caked it up, excuse me, but I lost the tag. No idea. But it's just a superwash merino in a darker gray. Very drapey. This is the drapiest one, I would say. And then the color pops, the actual pattern from Stephen West, Speckle and Pop, calls for you to use as many minis as you want. So choose 5 or 6 minis, and then every time it calls for this band to come in of color, you're to alternate the colors. Excuse me. But I had that skein, and so I won't go over it too much, but I had that skein from Ancient Arts, their Socknado base, which is just their worker sock base, in a colorway called I Met Stephen West and I Liked It. I'm going to buy more of that, by the way, because I just need to have it in my stash just as a memento. So I'm going to buy another skein of that, just letting you know. But that turned out all those neon pops of color. And then there's an I-cord border all the way around from this beautiful yarn. And it is so much fun. This shawl is so much fun. And you can wear it a million ways. It is so big, so luxurious, so drapey. What's funny about this one is when I knit it, both the bicycle, the Westwool bicycle, and the Ancient Arts little nettle soft little soft, whatever, are quite woolly. And when I knit the shawl, it was small. Like, it honestly was maybe, I'm gonna say 4 feet, 3.5, 4 feet, you know, this whole middle section before I did the border. And I'm like, ooh, like this whole straight section here, all these chevrons, wasn't very long at all. It wasn't very long. Actually, it must have been shorter than that because I'm spreading my arms now. I'm spreading my arms straight out as far as they can go. But it wasn't very big. And I thought, ooh, this shawl is not going to be as big as his previous shawls. Compound that with, once you get to, then you start on the border. And I love Stephen West, the way he does his borders. Do I love all of his borders? No. But the way he constructs them, so much thought, so many design elements, so much attention to that the eyelets point down and are oblong, and you know that there's a ridge of brioche that goes along one side of it, because the border, I chose the brioche option. I need practice. So which way am I looking at this now? Hang on. Okay, so this is the right side. And I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it. Yes, you will, but okay. So this is just garter, and then there's brioche, and there's brioche. So every point is a combination of garter and then a brioche section. So you can see one side is garter and then one side is brioche. I hope you can see that. Brioche. And it was so well written. His tutorials, I love Stephen West patterns because he does a tutorial for every section. So you can follow, along with no problem. It doesn't matter how complicated his designs might be. He breaks it down into little itty bitty chunks, and he does a video demo for every section of almost, I think, every one of his shawls. I'm not sure everyone, but the ones that are a little bit more complicated. But this, is wonderful. Interestingly enough, when I was reading other project notes, and actually the pattern even said it right in the pattern, you might run out of Master Color 1, or the Master Color 3, Master Color 3, and that's this dark one. You might run out because that is the foundation for your border. That's the main color in your border. You might run out of that color. And so you have a choice. You can either go back to one of the other two lighter grays and just start knitting with that, or you can just make a shorter border. And sure enough, I ran out. I was supposed to do, I do believe 6 more, so 3 more runs of brioche before I did the I-cord binding. And with brioche, you're knitting every row twice. So you do one row and then you shove all your stitches back and then you do the same row again with the other yarn. So I was missing 1, 2, 3 of those. So 6 passes. And I thought, oh, my border's not going to turn out very well. It's not going to be as stunning because, you know, I'm short, like probably about that much in material. You cannot tell. I can't tell. I mean, you can tell if you look at the pictures of some of the borders are super deep, you can see, but it does not detract from the shawl at all. I still find it stunning. And I don't know what else to say about that other than it was a super fun knit. Hang on, a super fun knit. There you go. A super fun knit, and I finished it. I'm so happy. That is one of the works in progress, the whips from years gone by that I actually got to finish. So I was very excited about that. So I think that is it for my, I've got notes. That is it for my finished objects. So let's go to whips. And I'm going to go to whips, and then I'll talk to you about my my 9 intentions and kind of the patterns that I've sort of settled on, because I talked about that in my last video, that there are certain designers that I wanted to make sweaters from, and so I will go through that with you. Where should I start? Okay, let's start with, I'm going to call this one the elephant in the room, and I don't really know what to do about this. Les garçons. Okay. This is the Montreal to Paris cowl, designed by Vincent, and I was so excited. I was so very excited to be participating in this, excited to see what the design was like. It was a collaboration between La Bien-Aimée and Les Garçons. And I started knitting it, and I think I might have told you, okay, so this is how far I've gotten. So this is how far I've gotten. I think the first time I showed you, I might have been just in this section here. But, actually, I was right there where that marker is. And then since we talked last, I've knit all of this. So this is a lot. I've knit a lot. Yeah. This was a lot of knitting, and I love this section. This section is awesome. But once they released the full pattern, I wasn't in love with it anymore. Yeah. And that's hard to say because, you know, I wanted to honor the process and honor the, and have this, you know, great experience with this, but I didn't like the pattern. Honestly, it's too linear for me. And I like some geometrical stuff, I do, but this is just all linear. It's just straight brioche, stripes back and forth. So that was one thing. So the pattern was very linear. The other thing, the closer and closer I got to having to do just the brioche stripes and the alternating stripes, the colors. The colors to me, I mean, I love these colors together, don't get me wrong. Those are beautiful together. Look at that, that's stunning. But the overall feel of this cowl was very masculine. And I know, and that's just a Linda-ism. That is not a commentary about the pattern because it's not, it's a complete unisex pattern, 100%. But for me, it just felt too manly. Because of the linear nature of the pattern design and then the colors being, I don't know, this says sports team to me, and I know it's not kind of like, I mean, it did have a dusty rose in it. It did have a dusty rose in it, but it's a navy blue and a gray and a royal blue and a mustard yellow and a green, and it just wasn't sitting, it wasn't sitting with me. And hang on 2 seconds. I'm going to change my lighting because it's getting very yellow and I don't know why it's getting very yellow. So hang on 2 seconds. But I have no idea if that made any difference at all. Anyway, it's just a yellow light. Okay, so, okay, enough about that. The point being is I have not progressed on this at all because I didn't really like it. I am going to finish this at some point, because I love this section, I really do, and I love the feel of it. It is so soft, but I think I'm gonna girly up. See, look at that. I mean, that's just great. I'm gonna girly up the minis that I'm using to do all the stripes. So if I'm going to do stripes, which is, well, I'm gonna stick with it, I think I just need to make it more feminine for me. So I'm going to brighten it up with creams and pinks and, or I might just brighten it up and do, might not just be pinks. I might do some other color, but I just need to brighten it up and make it just a little bit more, even more neutral would be good. Taupes and grays and creams and maybe that dusty pink in there would be lovely, but I think we just either make it more neutral, but the other colors were too sports teamy for me, and I don't know, I just kind of lost my excitement about that project. So that is whip number 1, which will be a long-standing whip, and I'll probably be talking to you about it next year when I go through all of that. Whip number 2, really excited to share with you. This is, and I posted this on Instagram, this is being held in my knitting PEI bags. This one glows in the dark, believe it or not, this bag. I've never been in a movie theater or anywhere where it's dark and knitting, but apparently this bag glows in the dark, which is kind of fun. And why I like this bag is because this bag actually can hold my yarn buddy while I'm moving it around. This is my yarn buddy. The project that I should be talking to you about is the Deschain. And the Deschain, the designer is, bear with me, I have this note, Leila Raven is the designer, and this is the Deschain so far. So I have finished the front panel. What I wanted to do is I did want to include a photo. So let me just pop my iPad on and hopefully I'll be able to show you a photo. But in the meantime, this is the Deschain, and this I am knitting in. It is actually suggested, the suggested yarn for this pattern is Quince & Co. Kestrel, which is a chained linen that is more of an Aran weight. I am using, what's nice about that, it's very light because it's that chain sort of weave. It's very light. One of my things that I'm trying to accomplish is to knit my stash. I have got so much yarn and I want to actually knit with the beautiful yarns that I have. And so in my stash, I had this Euroflax wet spun linen in the eggplant colorway. Now this is a fingering weight, and so I'm holding it double. It might be a sport weight too. Actually, I think it's a sport weight. It's sport, and I'm holding it double. And that is giving me this beautiful, beautiful weave. I am now in love with eggplant, aubergine, whatever you want to call it. I'm considering it to be a neutral because it goes with almost everything, except for red, I think, but it goes with almost everything. I love, love, love this color. This will also be known as my Goldilocks sweater project whip because it took me 3 times to do it. Because remember, don't swatch, watch. I don't swatch. So the pattern calls for, again, 6mm or US 10 needles. Excuse me. It calls for an Aran weight yarn. And I do believe 2 sport together are about the right yarn. But when I started, oh no, so what I did, I decided originally, this is why it took me 3 times. Originally, I was going to just do it with 1 strand. I was going to knit it as sport, and I thought I will just choose a slightly bigger size. So I chose a bigger size, started knitting it, but with 6mm needles, way too loose. Way too loose. So then I thought, okay, well, that's not good. So I went down to a 4mm needle, thinking about my Ranunculus, going, okay, not a problem. So I chose an even larger size, went down to a 4mm needle and started knitting it just single. And I still didn't like the texture. I got like into row 10 and it was still super gapey. The stitches were big and loopy, and I thought, okay, well, this is not working. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to meet myself in the middle. I'm going to hold 2 strands together, and I'm going to use a 5mm needle. Is that what I'm on? Is that what I settled on? Is that what I settled on? I can't tell. Hang on. I'm going to tell you about this little book in a second. I settled on 5mm needles. I settled on size 2. Originally I cast on size 5, thinking that I would have to do that because of the yarn and then because of the needle, but I ended up with size 2, casting on 107 stitches using my 5mm needles and holding the yarn double. And that gave me the fabric that I liked. So then I started knitting it and I started measuring. So you start knitting it on this, you cast on, and then you start knitting and doing the lace pattern immediately. It's a 14-row repeat. So easy to remember. Oh my God, it was so easy. I only had to do it once and I knew exactly what I was doing every repeat after that. And this I did in 6 days of knitting. It's not the only thing I was knitting, but this took me 6 days. So, and I haven't knit on it. I didn't knit on it yesterday and I didn't knit on it today. So that's the front done. And if I soon, let me show you a picture. If I can get a picture up here, hang on. None of my technology wants to work fast for me today. And let's go to photos and let's go to the Deschain. Okay, this is the Deschain. I hope you can see that. Yeah, I think you can see that there. That is the Deschain by Leila Raven. And look at that lacework in the front. It's supposed to be linen. It's supposed to be cropped. And it's supposed to have a lot of positive ease, something like 20 inches of positive ease. When I measured, so I knit about halfway and then I measured the wingspan. And it is, look at this, it is strictly, you knit the front with lace, the back has no lace, so that's what's next. I'm just going to start knitting the back in just stockinette. And then you seam the shoulders together, then you pick up stitches in the round, and it's a drop sleeve. And I have like 14 inches of positive ease, which is plenty for me. So the gauge on this was supposed to be 14 inches by 20 rows, 14 stitches by 20 rows in a 4-inch swatch. And what I got after measuring, because I gauge swatched this panel, and I ended up with 17 stitches, but 20 rows. So I obviously was smaller, hence I don't have 20 inches of ease, I have 14, but it also meant that you're supposed to knit 15 inches. I had to do 1 extra repeat of the pattern to get the right depth for the front. So that is where I'm at with the Deschain. And this is my very first linen project, very first linen project. I'm so excited about it. And this yarn, is linen called yarn? This fiber, I don't know if it's yarn. Is linen yarn? It's fiber. Anyway, you tell me, is linen yarn? I guess it is. Really rough, like it's ropey. And I don't know if that's all linen or just this linen, but it's ropey. And while it is not irritating my hands, it's not, you know how you've got like merino or merino and silk, and it just feels so good as it's moving through your fingers. This is more like, okay, this is work. This is work. I'm still enjoying it. Do not get me wrong, but it's different. I'm hoping that when I wash it or block it, soak it, that it will soften, and I think it does. What's funny, you're supposed to put this in the dryer. It even says on the ball band, wash this yarn and dry this yarn repeatedly, like wash and dry your make repeatedly. The more you do that, the softer it will get. Okay, that's just counterintuitive for, you know, knitting. But anyway, So I'm looking forward to getting this done and blocking it. And I have some dresses that this is going to go over. So a nice summer make, and this will actually spring, fall because of the color, as well as summer because of the fabric. So super excited about my very first linen project. So that's this. When it comes to tools, I cannot say enough about my Yarn Buddy. This is my Yarn Buddy. I purchased mine from Fleece and Harmony. You can get them on Etsy, I'm sure, but I bought mine from Fleece and Harmony, and I love to support local makers. The maker itself he is from Nova Scotia, and if you ever have to hold two yarns together, I cannot imagine a better way to do it than with a Yarn Buddy, because literally, if these are my two yarns, let me try and get them, if I can grab them for you. If these are my two yarns, this is what happens, and it just goes seamlessly. It is, you never are tugging, nothing's getting tangled. It's actually fun to spin your yarn right off of this, and it fits two skeins. As you can see, the top goes on, and the ball bearings, it's just so well made, I can't say enough about it. And he doesn't have the name of the company. I had it on one of my previous videos. If I can find it, I'll put it up there. But absolutely love my Yarn Buddy, and it has been instrumental in this project. And funny that my Yarn Buddy was made in Nova Scotia, and my bag is actually from Prince Edward Island. I don't know. That's just a fluke. Just the way it goes. Just the way it worked out. And this is the perfect project bag for my project and the Yarn Buddy to be on the go. And my ChowGoo needles in 5mm. There you go. In you go. And all tucked away. See? There you go. So that was work in progress, successful work in progress, happy work in progress, number 2 with the yarn. How are you guys doing? Are you still with me? I hope I'm not overwhelming anybody. But like I said, I've got so much to share because I haven't podcasted in a while. If you need to take a break, just turn me off. Turn me off, hit pause, go take whatever break, a week, a 2, a couple days, whatever, and then come back when you're ready. But my next work in progress is a complete, again, like this sweater, an off the cuff. It's not part of the 9 or it wasn't part of my intentional knitting. Sorry, my throat is really dry. It wasn't part of my intentional knitting. It just sort of happened. And that's because I was going through my stash looking for yarns to match with the projects that I plan to make, which I'm going to show you. And then I came across all these scraps from like 2019 and 2018, and I'm thinking, you know what? You really need to knit this stuff. You need to knit it. And I was in that spring and summer kind of mood. So what I ended up knitting or choosing to do was the North Fork. And I don't know if you know this pattern by Melissa. I'm not going to pronounce her last name. It is too difficult for me. I have to just see what I'm showing you here. This is the North Fork tee. Hopefully you can see that. It is also a linen top. And this was done in, again, a worsted linen. I didn't have that linen at all. What I did have was, in Knit City 2019, I purchased a shawl kit. I cannot find any of the information. I wasn't obviously keeping track very well or whatever, but it was this beautiful silk yarn. It was 100% silk, and I bought a skein and chartreuse that had little beads, a plain skein and chartreuse, and then also a skein that was royal blue and limey green combined with beads, and a mohair, a royal blue, peacock blue mohair. And this was all supposed to make a shawl that was waves. It was called the wave shawl. I got halfway through that shawl and that mohair was so horrible to knit with. I made so many mistakes, and then when I tried to rip it out to fix my mistakes, you couldn't rip it out and it was just a gong show, and I ended up cutting it off and throwing the shawl away. That's how bad it was. I could not undo it. But so I had a small bit of the royal blue because I was working through the royal blue section of the shawl. And so I had, like, I don't know, I'm going to say 30 grams of the royal blue, not even, maybe 20 grams of the royal blue silk with the beads. And then I had probably about 80 grams of both the limey chartreusey greens. Well, those combined were not enough to make anything, but what I did have is I had several skeins of this, which is King Cole Finesse cotton silk. And this is just a nice cream DK weight silk. My other silks were also DK weights, and the pattern called for Erin, so I doubled them up. And this is my North York tee so far. Look how pretty that is. Oh, I love it. You can't see the beads. The beads are so far and few between, the little blingy things. But I just decided to marl it. I used part of the skeins for the top, held double, and then I used all of the blue that I could. I marled it in, and then when I ran out, I started marling in the white or the off-white, and now I'm holding this double. So these skeins, oh, they're so squishy. I love it. I'm holding double. Now this, again, let me get my notes because this did not work out quite the way I thought it was going to work out. So, although I didn't really have to try too many times on this one. So this one, the gauge should have been 14 by 20 and I was getting 16 by 20. So again, very similar to the previous pattern. What I did is, because this is a top-down raglan, I wasn't too worried about the size. I cast on based on, because my yarn was about the right weight, I cast on size 5. Is that what I did? I cast on size 5. Oh, but it wanted 6.5 millimeters, so 10.5 US needles again. And I didn't like the loosiness of the stitches. So I went down to I went down to a 5 again, same as my Deschain. I don't know what it is, but I liked that tighter weave fabric. And so I wanted to go up a size. So I ended up knitting size 5 because of my smaller needles. I thought, based on that, I think I'm going to go to a size 5. And I just guessed. I didn't know my gauge at that time. I just guessed. I went up, I think 2 sizes. And then why I was comfortable to do that is because it's a top-down sweater and you're doing raglan increases, it is so easy to keep knitting and then trying it on, keep knitting, increase, try it on. Am I getting enough depth so that I can now start to pinch the sides together? Am I getting close to where I need to separate for the sleeves? And with a raglan sweater, you can just increase longer or increase shorter, depending on what size you want. And as soon as you've got the right width that you need, you can just keep knitting in the round until you get the right depth that you need. So this type of sweater construction is really easy if you are wanting to adapt a pattern or don't have the right needles, don't have the right size yarn. It is an easy pattern to try and adapt to what you do have. And so again, don't be afraid. Worst case scenario, you just rip it out. But that worked for me perfectly. Yeah, and I've literally, it's knitting up very, very fast. I have nothing else to say about it, other than the fact that the yarns are working really well together. My DK held double is a little bit thicker than these held double, but not too bad. Not too bad. I mean, it is a little bit thicker, but I don't think anyone's going to know. And I'm going to crop it, and I'm going to finish the last little bit. I'm going to marl in the green again, and the ribbing is going to be twisted rib. I don't think the pattern calls for twisted rib. The pattern actually calls for an I-cord bind off. I'm just concerned it's going to curl. So I might do a twisted rib waistband on it. Then an I-cord, maybe. I don't know. Probably not an I-cord. But I'm going to do a twisted rib on the bottom and then the sleeves. So I'm just going to save enough green to do a little bit of just a green finish around like 1 or 2 rows of green on the sleeves. But I'm going to do marling in the green again on the bottom of the sweater. So that is my North Fork, and it is in my So Shannon project bag, which I got off of Etsy, and it's one of those beautiful quilty bags. I love this. This is a great, it's not a bucket bag. Well, it might be a bucket bag, I guess, but it holds an entire sweater including all the wool. So that's wonderful. So that is work in progress number 2. Do I have any more works in progress? No, pardon me, that was work in progress number 3, because I keep forgetting about the Montreal to Peru thing. That is all my works in progress. I think that's enough. So let me talk briefly about upcoming projects. So I mentioned in my last podcast of which designers I really wanted to knit. And so Isabella Kramer was one of them. And so the Minot is a sweater that I am excited to be knitting. So I'll be casting on that very shortly. I'm just trying to finalize the yarn. I was gifted this beautiful, beautiful 100% Canadian wool. It is surprisingly soft for a for like 100% wool. It is non-superwash. It is surprisingly, excuse me, soft. And I am going to do it with this, which is a real chocolatey coffee chocolate. Yeah, it's more of a gray brown, really nice. And I'm just trying to find the right cream to go with it. Again, trying to use things in my stash that I have. I have this beautiful Angora blend. And this is actually, what is this? This is Merino, Angora, and Llama blend that I got at a thrift store last year sometime, I guess. And I have 700 grams of this, but it's fingering weight. I thought I could hold it double or even hold it with some Surrey alpaca. I just have to see what is going to give me the right consistency to be with this. But I think my offset is going to be cream or oatmeal with this. So that is my Isabel Kramer make. Then where's my other make? That was my Isabel Kramer make. My Andrea Mowry make is going to be Nurture. Hopefully that is showing in your screen properly. Is her Nurture pattern. And that I am going to use, again, working from my stash and really into 100% wool. This is a local to BC sheep farmer. And this is Wool Maiden. And this is a beautiful Merino Romney blend from one of her sheep. Doesn't tell me which one it is. And it's called Aspen. And I have enough to make the Nurture, so this is quite woolly. I'm excited to knit this up and see sort of how that works. But I like the idea. I think that's going to look really nice. I think that's going to look really nice. And keeping in theme with Nurture, right? It's the right weight and just something very neutral. And again, I love that aesthetic, which is the dress, which is just a gathered linen dress with a sweater on top. High-waisted, love it. Very, very summer friendly, spring friendly, fall friendly, and if you put a liner underneath it, you can probably wear it in the winter too. So love that. So that is my Andrea Mowry make choice. I've talked to you about Caitlin Hunter's Guthrie. Hopefully you can see that, the Guthrie. Now this is something that I have been wanting to make ever since I went to Barcelona Knits in 2019. Oops, I just banged the camera. Sorry, you're wobbling. And the yarn that I had chosen way back when for that is, it's exactly the yarn they had for their sample. So Olan Yarns, which I do believe is a Donegal, and it's from Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. They had a sample of the Guthrie knit in this yarn combination. And so I bought it at Barcelona Knits. And this is their Donegal DK. And this color is called Field. This is the main color called Renegade, which is just a beautiful, I mean, it's got all sorts of greens and grays and I love it. And then this has got the pops of the pink and the beautiful flowers in it. What I liked about their version of the Guthrie is it was very muted. The color work was very muted and it just had such a beautiful blend. And this is almost like a tweedy. And it's actually, it's not a tweed and it's not a slub. It doesn't have enough of those little puffy things to be a slub, but it definitely was a precursor, I think. But absolutely going to be casting that on very shortly. And so that was my Guthrie. That has been a long time want to knit. So darn it, I'm knitting it. I'm knitting it. My Nora Gone choice is called the Taku. And this is also an Aran weight sweater, but it is more of a silk blend, Aran weight, to keep it quite light, I guess. So I just have to find the right yarn for this. And what attracted me to this is I have a magazine from Noragon. I don't have to buy the pattern because it's in the magazine that I have. And I got that magazine free from, isn't that funny? It's the Kelowna shop. I want to say the Art of Love, but that's not right. Oh my goodness. Can't remember at the moment, it's escaping me, but a shop in Kelowna, and they were giving away all these magazines, and so I rifled through them, and that two Noragon Barocco magazines were there, and so I took them, and they were full of patterns, and I love all of the patterns. So this one has been on my list for a long time, so I'm just going to actually knit it. And of course, the Felix cardigan, that is on my list to make. So I'm going to be casting that on very shortly, but I'm not going to cast on the cardigan. I'm making a cardigan, but I'm casting on the sweater, the actual sweater, and I'm going to steek it. And it will be my very first steeked sweater, but I figured it's kind of the easier. There's no color work. There's nothing fancy in it, but that way I can knit in the round. The whole idea of going back and forth for a cardigan just didn't appeal to me. I get it if I have to do cables, but that did not appeal to me. So those are the patterns that are absolutely going to be cast on ASAP, along with the whips that are in progress. Keep in mind, I still want to get, sorry guys, I'm talking a lot and I know that, but I'm just trying to catch you up. I still have lingering whips. So what is this? This is my Breathing Space sweater. This is my Astraeus Christmas sweater. That is my Slipstravaganza Christmas shawl from Stephen West. That is my Stillness shawl from Curious Handmade, Helen Stewart. I still have Patrick's sweater, and I still have the Andrea Mowry Brioche Luscious shawl for my sister. So I still have 6, oh, and the Sherwood, is it called the Sherwood? Sherwood socks from Kay Jones. I still have 7 languishing whips. So I will be working on something throughout all of this. So I want to get these done. It won't be the Slipstravaganza because that's not really until Christmas, so I got time. I'm just saying. I won't be doing that quite yet. But that is sort of the, oh, I shouldn't have turned this on. That is sort of, because I just wanted to show you a few pictures of, I just wanted to show you a few, look at my hair. Oh my goodness. I need a haircut, which is why it's up. But I've got all these little pieces that are everywhere. They're coming everywhere. I just want to show you a couple of patterns that I saw that I thought, oh, these have to go into my queue somewhere. Maybe not for this year, but definitely. This one is called People by Kaneko Yuki. And this one, because I wanted to do cables, and I haven't decided on my Thea Coleman cable sweater yet. I'm still going to do a Thea Coleman cable sweater, but this one totally caught my eye. It's a cropped, it's longer in the back than the front. It's got very unique construction and a ton of detail on the sleeves. Love that one. So that one's going into my favorites. Another one going into my favorites is this one, the Jaol sweater, which is a mohair blend. It's an oversized, honestly, it's just a slouchy sweater. And two from my favorite things. The number 5 vest, I'm actually probably going to cast this one on shortly because I have some yarn that I want to use for that. And I think it's a very wearable garment because it's got pockets on both sides. So the number 5 vest and the number 9 sweater. The number 9 sweater will be more later in the year or next year. Very basic raglan, but what I liked it was more of a worsted weight with the mohair as opposed to always fingering weight. So I really like that. And again, easy, relaxed fit, TV knitting. So those are sort of the patterns that I'm going to do. I'm also, as you know, the lane splitter skirt. I have all the Noro yarn for that, so that's going to get cast on shortly. And at some point, maybe not this year, the West Village skirt. And I like the skirt. It's too short for me in this picture. I'd have to make it a bit longer to suit my style, like just above the knee maybe. But really, really like it. And I want it. I think it's a great way to start knitting skirts because it's not a huge, it looks quite simple. It doesn't look complicated. And again, I'm just thinking with skirts, you must have to use yarn that has nylon in it in order for it to not slouch, you know, sort of become damaged from just sitting in it all day long. I don't know. I'll think about that. Okay, so that was it for the knitting. I've got 2 tools. Excuse me, I'm just going to be out of frame for a second. 2 things that I've discovered that are working really well for me. My sister got these for me for my birthday in August, and I did not remember that she got them, and I was rifling through all of my accessories, and these are circular stitch holders by Clover. And these are absolutely fabulous because instead of putting, I've always put my sleeves on yarn to hold them, and now I have them on these circular stitch holders from Clover, and let me tell you, oh, so much easier. If I could actually get them out to show you. See, so much easier. Literally, you just have this, you know, you have a needle on one end, you have this little thing on the other end. It's got a hole in it, and you just literally put your needle back through it so that it holds it like a stopper, and your sleeve is now held, and it can hold a lot more stitches than I've got on here. So she gave me 4 of them, and this one, okay, yeah, this one is totally scrunched up. You can let loose there, dude. Let loose. But now, very light, very easy to use. You just got to make sure you don't poke yourself because they are kind of sharp. So just be careful about that. Maybe put some needle stoppers on there. But loving those. That is working really well for me. And the other surprising find is this. Can't believe I bought this. The Vogue Knitting Project Journal. I'm not the greatest at Ravelry. I try to put things on Ravelry. Then I started having little mini notebooks in every project bag. But for me, it seems if I have one spot to write things down, I'm more consistent. I don't think it's easier. I'm just for me, I'm more consistent. And I'm loving this. This has space for how many projects? So this I got off of Amazon, and it's called the Vogue Knitting Project Journal. I think it was 12 bucks or something. And it has room for 25 projects. And it has instructions on how to use the journal. It's pretty self-evident. Design tips, how to draw schematics, and then this is kind of what the page looks like. So you have, this is the project, then you have all the details, yarn, needle size, gauge, etc. And then you have note paper. You have it in graph form and bullet form. So you could bullet journal here if you wanted. You can draw diagrams if you want. I'm going to paste in pictures of the finished object, the yarn I used. So it's a memento. So, and I like it because it's floppy, so you can fill it up if you want to. But in the back, which is so much fun, is it's got standard foot measurements when you're making socks, standard head measurements for when you're making hats. It's got yarn, standard body measurements, yarn weights. It's got a place for you to record your and or loved ones and or gift-worthy people's body measurements so you don't forget it. It's got, what else has it got? This, okay, this is the thing I've used the most. I don't know if you can see that there, but that is a conversion of US to metric needle size. So that's what I was referring to today to find out if it was a US 6 or, you know, a 6mm or US 10. So this thing, I'm going to buy a few more of them. Loving it so far, really enjoying it, and looking forward to seeing how I populate it. So it's, hey, it's got space for 25 projects. Maybe that's my goal for the year. Except socks. No socks go in that book. So that's that. That was the tools. I guess that's it for now. So if you are full of all my knitting shenanigans, I don't blame you. So if that's it for the knitting and you want to sign off, wonderful, totally get it. Have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. If you want to hang out for a little bit of chatter, refresh, take a sip, and I will try and recount everything that's been going on since I spoke to you last. Okay, so Elizabeth George, one of my favorite authors, read this book, In Pursuit of the Proper Sinner. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Not going to tell you anything about this book other than it's a Thomas Linley, Inspector Thomas Linley and Barbara Havers, Sergeant Havers book. And these kind of go in sequence a bit, and I didn't read the one before, but that's okay. I think I'm caught up, but I'm going to read the next one because I now want to go in sequence because I get that there's, you know, connection between them. So love this book. Love Elizabeth George. She tells a really, really good story. And I didn't know who did it. Not until like the very, 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 very end. Yeah, she had me going the whole way. Love that book. The other book that I am I did not bring this to Spain with me, but as soon as I came home, I started picking it up, my Simple Abundance book. And I have to say, March so far has been all about self-love and just really appreciating who you are as a person and some tips and tricks and tools on how to do that because life is busy, the world can be harsh, and I think we're harshest on ourselves. And if you don't have this book and you just want to feel good, quick, easy read every night, it's a page, half a page. Can't say enough about this book, Simple Abundance. It's a grounding book for me. And so I absolutely love it. So that's that. Now, chatter, and this is in no particular way. I hope that light isn't bothering you guys too much. It's bothering me a bit. But let's see. So where did we leave off? Okay, we were looking for property in Spain. Yeah, we were looking for property in Spain. Oh, what a gong show. So no sooner do we find a piece of property, and by property, we're talking about a very modest, little tiny 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, really cramped, place to call home so that we're not renting other people's properties all the time, because that just seems like a waste of money. But also something that you know, that you feel comfortable, you know what to expect every single time you get there, because traveling these days is not getting any easier and it is getting more stressful. And so when we get there, the last thing we want to know is that the property that we've rented, oh my goodness, both our properties. In the first property that we rented for the first month in January, which I did not go into at the time with you, the sewer backed up. The people had not, yeah, leave it at that. The second property we went to, we couldn't even stay there. Nobody had cleaned it for months and months and months and months and months. And this is, you know, that was on the property management company, and they apologized completely and put us in a very nice property, which is why we ended up right on the ocean because of that. But that whole experience, it was just, you know what, travel is already so difficult with COVID and whatnot, and the world becoming a bit more scary, that, you know, we're at a time in our lives where we just want to go and know what we're getting and know that we can trust what we're getting. And so we're going to go there, and we're going there a lot. This is our home away from home. This is our second home. So we don't even call it a vacation property. It isn't. It's a home, but it's a very small home. So, and a very modest home. So we did put an offer on something, and no sooner did we put an offer on that we found out that we had a problem here at home in Canada, because the water main of our front yard broke. Yeah, so 45,000 liters of water were going underneath our house, like every month or so. We had no idea how much that was going to cost to fix. The water main ran underneath, the water main itself ran underneath our carport, our driveway, and then underneath our carport, our garage, and then underneath the skim coat of the foundation, like right underneath our house. Oh my goodness. So needless to say, we put the brakes on everything. Patrick, bless his cotton socks, world's greatest operations manager, got everything under control, phoned all the right people, water was shut off. We have caretakers for the house here when we're gone. Got all that done, but we had no idea how much it was going to cost us. So then estimates started coming in. You do not want to know how much that costs, because our entire front yard was gone. Had to be dug up. It was still there. There was no sinkholes or anything like that. Thank goodness our house is well built and it has all the right drainage, and the water just went through the normal drainage paths that it's supposed to go through. So no damage to the house, thank goodness. No damage to any property other than the fact that the pipe needs to be replaced. In order to replace the pipe, they had to dig up the driveway. Now we have to redo our driveway. No, insurance does not cover any of this because there's no damage. Insurance covers you as an insured person must fix the problem. The insurance companies will fix any damage. They do not fix damage incurred by fixing the problem, like digging up a yard or digging up a driveway. No. They only cover the damage to your home caused by the incident. Yeah, you as a homeowner are responsible to fix it and all the incurring costs of fixing it. So that was super expensive. And so now my front yard is a big mud pit, and my neighbors love me. So that was fun. However, on the bright side, once we did figure out what all the costs were, we were still able to manage to put the offer. So we a month later, we restarted the whole process. And so now we're just waiting to hear whether or not all the paperwork is going to go through for us to have a little pied à terre, a little teeny weeny condo that overlooks, we're set about a mile away from the ocean, but we've got a nice view in a little community that is very Spanish style, but it's very modern. And 5 minutes from our golf course, 5 minutes from everything. And it's just lovely. So we're very blessed that way. So we're kind of excited. Yeah. So that's been going on. So with all that, that's the fun stuff. And I say all this stuff And I call it stuff, and I probably shouldn't call it stuff, but I do, because it's sometimes hard to get excited about this kind of thing when you got wars going on everywhere, and you've got leaders of the world, you know, making decisions that you just don't understand, and I just don't understand it. And so I had a hard time in February. I'm better now, but I had a really hard time in February. I just didn't understand why decisions were being made to go to war, and you know what benefit it is to a nation these days to overtake another sovereign nation, and while the rest of the world watches. I think that's the part that I find the hardest. I get it, but I don't get it, and I'm very confused about the whole thing, and I just don't know what we can do about it. And I feel, you know, probably a lot of you feel the same. Very helpless, very privileged, because I'm sitting here so far away from the problem, a little closer in Spain, but it was still 1,800 miles away. But yeah, that was a very confusing time. It's still confusing, and I still don't know what to think about it. And I just pray every night that it kind of comes to a peaceful resolution and no more people have to die for I don't know what reason. So anyway, enough of that. However, very excited about our property in Spain. And when I got home, so happy to see Mom. Mom did so well on her own. I am so proud. Oh my God. She was just a trooper, and yeah, didn't miss a beat. I thought for sure she would struggle a bit. She was lonely for the first couple weeks, I guess, but then just picked right up in her social network and with the phone calls and her card games. And of course, no sooner do we leave and go to Spain that they shut down the country again. Nobody can, you know, because of COVID. But that only lasted for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then it opened up again. So it all worked out well. So that has happened. What else? Duke is doing all right. He's getting old. He's 13, and now he is deaf, and his cataracts are getting really bad. So that is a problem, and it took us a week to settle him down. So literally last night was the first night. So if I look tired, that's probably why. Was the first night he actually slept through the night. And for a while there, I thought he was getting doggy dementia, because in the middle of the night, he'd start roaming and trying to get out of the living room, which he's always had the whole bottom part of the house to himself. But he started wandering, like just wandering and bumping into things. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is he having a stroke? What's going on with my dog? So that was a little concerning, but he's fine. He's absolutely fine. So that's wonderful. What else can I tell you? It seems to me like a lot more has been going on, but we've been just dealing with the house for the most part. Yeah. What else can I tell you? I don't think I can tell you anything else. I got to find a new book to read. I'm looking forward to all my knitting, and I do want to have another giveaway at some point very soon. Next time I will be a little bit more organized, and I will have a giveaway for some yarn or some yarny goodness. And on that note, I should probably cut it off here because I've rambled enough. But that is all the goings on, and I look forward to talking to you all again. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got some enjoyment out of it. I hope some of the knitting ideas and some of the patterns that I'm working on or thinking of working on are appealing. Love to hear what you're knitting on. And yeah, love to reconnect with everybody, and looking forward to the next time. So until then, take care everybody, and happy knitting.